Hey, what's going on? Back again. Let's get right into it. I had to reboot my computer a second ago, and now if I look and type Docker PS, you see nothing is there. So let's do Docker PSA, and you can see this container is actually stopped. So what I'm going to do is do a Docker start, and I just type the name of the container, and looks like that brings it right back up. So my container is running, and I should be able to reconnect using Table Plus here. And I'm going to use my graphical tool. Click that, and my ETF DB is up and running that we already created. And now we're going to populate that. And so what I'm going to do now is write this Python script to load up this database. Okay. So if you've been following this channel for a while, you probably have an Alpaca account already. The reason why I use that here is not because Alpaca pays me any money, because they don't. I've just provided free advertising for this service. But I like to use it because it's free to sign up, gives us a nice API for stock trading, and also provides a nice data feed if you sign up for an account. And so I've been using their Polygon data feed to get these minute bars, and have been using that in the videos. And so I have this account, I logged in, and what you can do you can do a paper trading account or live trading account. I'm in paper trading, and you have an endpoint, and you have an API key that you can generate, and I generate a new one for each video. And what I do is just create a config.py as usual, and I have an endpoint, and then I have an API key, and I have this secret key, right? And then I use that, and then I just, in this config file, I just say API URL, and we can just define some constants here that we can import into our program. So I'll do API key, and then API secret, and that's all good to go. And I'm going to delete that key afterwards anyway, so it doesn't matter. You can look at it. Okay, and so that key is in there. And then now I just need to use the old Alpaca Trade API as usual. I'm just going to go through this pretty quick because we've done this so many times. So you can do like a populate stocks.py script right here. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do import config, right? And then we're going to run this. So I'm just going to run this real quick, and you see I have this virtual environment already. And I'm going to do pip3 install Alpaca Trade API like that. And I should already have it, and I'll make a requirements.txt and put that in there in case someone doesn't have this already. It'll be there in the repository, and you can do your pip -r or pip install -r requirements text, and it'll install all the packages in here. So while I'm in here, let me go ahead and add some additional packages. So since we're going to be working with Postgres, we want this psychopg2, right? So there's a package called psychopg2, the most popular database adapter for Postgres and Python. And so I want to add this here. And I'll talk about the trade kit Docker image that we've been discussing at the beginning of this year, and which includes all these libraries out of the box. So we're going to build up to that over time. And then I'm going to show you how to use this to load data. But also there's a user out there, Rich Wheels, who has been talking about wanting to use async functionality. And so there's actually PG, was it async PG? Yeah, async PG is the name of this package. And so I want to show how to use that as well when I get to prices. And so we're going to load data both synchronously, and also we're going to use this asynchronous Python package here as well. So that'll let us load data even faster. Instead of blocking, we'll be able to make many requests at once and not have to wait for each API request to return. So I'm going to install async PG, and I'm also going to use this AIO HTTP, which is just an asynchronous client for Python. And so we're going to talk about that a little later as well. So I'm going to add that. And also we can throw in requests here. So you can use the Python request library. And I'm going to do pip3 install requirements text. And this will just gather up everything in here and install it for you. And this will be in the repository, and you'll have everything you need that we're going to use in this video. Okay, so we got our populate stocks, and let's just roll right through it. So I'm going to import Alpaca Trade API as Trade API. So I'm going to import that, and we'll go ahead and import our Postgres library, PsychoPG2. And let's go ahead and see if we can just establish a connection to our timescale Postgres database. So I'll just do connection equals psychopg2.connect, and I need to pass it the parameters for my database. And so I'm going to do host equals config dot, and I need to add my database configuration in here. So I'll do db host equals, and that can just be localhost. And I can do db user equals, and what was our user? We'll just use the Postgres user. We just did some default settings that you shouldn't use in production. So I'll do db pass, and I think it's just password. And then the name of the database is db name equals etfdb, we called it. And let's see if we can connect to this thing that's running in our Docker container. And so I'm just going to do host equals config dot db host database equals config dot database name, and then user equals config dot username, or db user I called it, and then password equals config dot db pass. Okay, and so that should be good to go. And yeah, let's see if this actually works. So I can create a new database cursor. So I can do cursor equals connection.cursor, and let's just see if we can execute a query. And so I'll do select star from stock, and then print cursor dot fetch all. Right, and let's see if this works. What did we mess up? Okay, I ran that, and look at that, no bugs. Look how good I am. So I run this, and I run it, and you see I have this list, the brackets, and it's a list of tuples. So I see Apple, I see NASDAQ 100, and Microsoft, which we inserted in the last video. And so they're already still there. And you know what? Let's see how we can work with these. So you see it's a list of tuples. I often like to make these into dictionaries. It makes it a little bit easier to work with. And so what you can do here is import psychopg2.extras. Okay. And this allows you to specify an alternate cursor for your database. And so I'm going to write cursor factory equals psychopg2.extras.dict cursor, so dictionary cursor, right? And so a cursor is just what you use to actually execute queries against your database. And so what we can do now, instead of just printing cursor fetch all, we can just say stocks equals cursor.fetch all. And then we can do, for stock in stocks, we can print out stock. And then we can access this like a dictionary instead of a tuple. And so the dictionary key we can use is the same as the column name in the database. So I can like print stock symbol, just like that. And I'll just print stock symbols, or I can print, stock name, and it'll be just like that. So that's how you establish a connection to Postgres and how you execute a query and loop through a result set. But that's not what we're doing. We're going to run a bunch of insert statements. So we're not selecting from the database. It doesn't have any data in it yet, or it only has a few example records, which I'm going to delete now. So we can either delete the record in our graphical tool, or we can write an SQL statement. And so I'll go to my SQL and do delete from stock, and I can run that. And so you see how our foreign key constraints prevented us, so it blocked us from deleting the stock records, because there are ETF records that rely on that now, that already reference stocks in that table. And so this kind of prevents us from shooting ourselves in the foot and deleting records that we actually need. And so what we can do is delete from ETF holding first, right? So now there won't be any references to that data, and I can delete from stock and clear it all out. But nice demonstration of the foreign key constraints. And I just wanted to mention all these little features because I didn't talk about that when we're using SQLite. We didn't set up any kind of constraints or anything like that at all. And so Postgres has all these features built in where you can protect your data and preserve the referential integrity and manage your data a bit better with more stricter enforcement of your data types. SQLite treats a lot of things as just strings. We have, real data types that we can use, and all these constraints that we can put into place, which is nice. Okay, so we cleared out our database, and now we have a database connection. And now I'm just going to delete this because we don't need it, right? So all we need here is the database connection, and what we want to do is connect to the Alpaca API. So we imported it as trade API, and so what we can do is just do our instantiation. So we'll do trade API.rest. Okay, so we're instantiating the Alpaca trade API, and then we just give it our API key, and then our API secret, and then we give it a base URL equals config.api URL. And while we're in our paper trading mode, as usual, we're using the paper API, but if we want to go live with our trades, we can just take this out here, and then we'll go into live mode if we just use api.alpacamarkets.com. But while we're testing, we want to use this fake internet money to trade and make sure our algorithms work if we're doing algorithmic trading or whatever we're doing. Okay, so paper trading account, I should have a connection, and let's see if we can call a trade API function. So trade API dot, and then list assets is the name of a function. And then I'm going to do that and run it, and let's see if this works. Alpaca Trade API has no attribute list assets. And why is that? Because I'm not using Trade API. What I need to be using is API. So I instantiated Trade API, and now I have an API object here. And then now if I do API dot, that's how I see my auto completion here. So cool. Make sure you have Visual Studio Code, Python extension, and you have these nice features built in to let you browse through the methods that are available in this little kit here. And so we have this list assets function that we can execute now. And I'm going to print assets like that. And you should see a ton of them come back. And look at that. So we got this big list of all kinds of stocks that we can use. And so let's go ahead and transform this into a structure that we can insert into our Postgres database. And so now let's just do for asset in assets. Okay, we'll say if asset dot, and so you see we have a name, we have tradable, we have an ID, we have an exchange, which we need. And so, yeah, so let's just print asset dot exchange, and we'll print asset dot name, and then asset dot symbol. And then what else do we need, right? So we have our stock table. This thing's getting annoying. Okay, so we have our stock table. We just need a symbol, name, exchange, and is ETF. So great, we already have what we need. And so what I'm going to do is say cursor.execute, and I'm going to say insert into stock, and then I'm going to give it a list of the columns. So I have the name, symbol, exchange, and is ETF, right? And then I'm going to insert it to it and give values of, and then we need to put these little placeholders. So you want to put this %s here, right? I think it was question mark whenever we did it with SQLite, but we put these placeholders, and then we put this as a second parameter to the execute here. We're going to put a little tuple and just give it the order of these parameters. So we give it the actual values that we want to insert into these placeholders. And so I'm going to do asset.name, asset.exchange, asset.symbol. So name, symbol, exchange is ETF, asset name, symbol, exchange. And we'll just put false for all the ETFs for now. And then we'll just go back. Once we download the ARK Invest funds, we'll just map up all of those symbol names and then update all those records to be true. Okay. So we'll give it a default of false, capital false, since it's Python. So that looks all right. Yeah, name, symbol, asset exchange, false. I think that's all we need. And what's this bugging me about? Okay, yeah, comma. I missed a comma there. All right, so that's our SQL statement. So we're looping through all those assets, and then we're inserting them, right? And what else do we need? At the very end here, outside of the loop, I need to commit my inserts. And so if we're in some transaction and we don't commit it, right, then we can start writing all this data, but then Postgres doesn't actually save it until we say commit. And this gives us the ability, if something goes wrong, we could technically catch exceptions and roll back if something goes wrong. But when we are ready and we have inserted all the data successfully and everything looks good, we can commit this to the database, right? And then as we're going, just to make sure this is working, I'll just print out asset.name like that. And so I'll just say f-string, inserting a stock, and then I'll just do the asset name and the asset symbol, inserting stock. And what do we do like that? No. I switch languages a lot all the time, and so I forget how it works in every language. I use JavaScript and PHP all the time, and it's funny that my brain slipped here. Let's see if this works. Asset name, asset.symbol. Is that the right syntax? F-string empty expression not allowed. I think I'm getting this mixed up. I was using JavaScript and PHP earlier today, and then yeah, I got my syntax all mixed up. But I need asset.name like that and asset.symbol like that, and then yeah, that should work. Okay, so printing that, getting my list of stocks, and you see it says inserting stock, and it's looping through a bunch of them really quickly and populating our database. And yeah, there's a bunch of them. Okay, and so you see those are all in there. Look at that, Ultra Pro Crude Oil ETF, all kinds of good stuff in here. And now, hopefully, I go to my database, and I go to browse this table or refresh it, refresh there. And now instead of Apple and so forth, we have all of these symbols, so thousands and thousands of them. And I can run SQL queries against this and say select star from stock, right? And I'll run that. Cool, so 10,875 rows. I can select star from stock where exchange equals NASDAQ. If I want to filter this down, so the number on a particular exchange, 4,000 something there. I can order by symbol, descending, right? And then see them in reverse alphabetical order, stuff like that. And then also, if you remember the full stack tutorial, I filtered down this list and only focused on tradable assets. There's an extra attribute to show whether a stock is shortable, right? So there's a lot of things to deal with. And so if you watch the full stack tutorial, we actually filtered down this list, so we didn't insert all 10,000. We only did the tradable assets, and maybe we looked at a field like whether the stock is shortable or not. So you might have some conditions on which stocks you want to put in your database. But I just dumped them all in here because we only really need the ARC fund ones, but I just wanted to put a big database, a big list of stocks here so that we have something to query. So that's how to use the Alpaca API and set it up real quick. And you can use another data source if you want to, but just note in the follow-up videos, I'm going to use price data. It needs to come from somewhere, so you can try using Yahoo Finance if you want to, which is really easy to use, or your other data provider. But I'm going to use this one because it's one that we use on the channel a lot, that is free, and it also has minute-by-minute data, which we're going to be using to demonstrate timescale. And one more thing I just noticed, AIO-HTTP is the name of the package, and I accidentally typed async IO right there. So I'm going to do AIO-HTTP like that. Async IO is the name of the Python async IO package that's built into Python 3.5 or 3.6 and above. So a little mistake there. And I'm going to publish this code right after this. And look at that. It's been 20 minutes already. Don't want to take up too much time. I don't want to have hour-and-a-half long videos over time. I want to try to do 20 minutes because I tend to fill up a lot of time. So I'm going to cut this off right here and keep going with a new concept. In the next video, we'll load the ETF table and the relationships, parse CSV files, that sort of thing. See you in the next video.